So you want me to talk about the long-term trends that have led to this concern about the work of the future and about that. And I think that's a good place to start. What's led to the concern is the fact that, after all, the labor market is the main way we have of distributing income. Historically, it might not have worked out that way. We might still be farmers, but we get income to most of the people in the country through jobs and paychecks. And over the years, over the last 30, 40 years, you know better than I, the share of, as productivity has increased in the old days, wages kept up with productivity, and the arithmetic says that the share of the national income that went to wages and salaries was about the same over time. In the last 30, 40 years, those two numbers have diverged, and productivity has continued to increase, not sensationally, but it has increased generally, leaving aside the virus and the pandemic, which is a problem in itself. But real wages, the real return to labor, has not kept up. The paths have diverged, because at the same time as all wages and salaries as a share of income have fallen away from productivity, there's been an explosion of executive salaries, of very high income. The data count executive salaries as wages and salaries, as if these were a payment for ordinary work. Whereas I think if you think about it for a minute, it's pretty clear that big executive salaries are a form of profit sharing. It's a form in which a large firm, if it has a very highly paid executive, shares its rent, shares its net surplus with its executives. And the fact that so much of it is stock options and things like that just confirms that fact. So the ordinary wages, the wages of the ordinary worker in retail sales or an office or something like that, must have been doing even worse than the raw data suggests. That, I think, is the key thing that the Commission has to address. It's whether people in the street who think about the end of work and all that realize it or not. What's really bugging them at bottom is the fact that they're not seeming to share in the prosperity that improved technology has got us. And this is a really important insight, because when you start worrying about the end of work, you think of the labor market. But the sources of the real problem, the failure of our system to distribute income to people who work generally, those failures can occur anywhere in the system. They don't have to be located in the labor market. There's room for a lot of ingenuity here, because since the nature of employment has changed, as we've become a service economy rather than a goods producing economy, there's room for innovation in how to organize union work. Another thought, by the way, is, and this is an example of how you can approach what looks like a labor market problem outside the labor market, a more active enforcement of the antitrust laws. Try to increase the degree of competition in the production of goods and services would also have the effect of improving the prospects for wages and salaries in the value added that corporations create. We discovered all over the world, in Asia, in Latin America, and elsewhere, an enormous supply of low-wage work. And so wages have been competed down. Quantitatively, how much this has meant, I don't know. It's a hard problem, but I think it has meant something. you can find, I'm sure, examples where a technological innovation, yes, this is something worth saying, where a particular technological innovation, a large one, has an effect on the distribution of employment by skills. But there are these things on both sides, and creating new occupations, destroying occupations, that make me think that it's probably the main factor in this disturbance in the distribution of incomes is probably not technological change. I do think that if we had some way of directing the innovation process, which is a mysterious thing, directing it not with respect to the labor market, but simply asking, what does society need that will make people better off? That would be useful, but it's a hard thing to do. My goal would be, with respect to directed technological change, to the extent that that can be done at all, would not be particularly aimed at its job consequences, but simply aimed at social benefit consequences.